love and respect. I hope you're well. I hope you're blessed. I hope you are staying undefeated with an undefeated mind. My name is Yolanda Lear and I am one member of the account team. Now, for those that don't know, account is a collective of individuals from the community who have come together to form a organization, but more so like a movement to fight against police injustice, to fight against police brutality, to fight against the unlawful stops and searches, the unlawful killings that have been inflicted on our community by the hands of the police. There are many ways in which we do this: scrutinizing the police, having meetings with senior officers. But the most important bit of what we do is educating our community, letting them know their rights, letting them know who they can contact if necessary, if they feel like they have encountered an unlawful stop and search, if they feel like they've had an interaction with police which had a bit too much of excessive force during that encounter. We help them to connect with individuals that can support their case and take the necessary actions needed, whether that's to file a civil claim or to make a complaint or anything more. This is what we do. Our aim is to be able to heal our community from the traumas that the police have inflicted on us, to be able to educate them. And one of the biggest aims, and probably the hardest, is to be able to create a community that can police itself. Now, I know that is a very, very big ask. And I myself personally, I may not see the results, the full results in my lifetime. But that doesn't mean that I shouldn't try. And that doesn't mean that I shouldn't use my voice. Because there are generations after me, and there will be more generations after me that should never, ever have to feel the traumas that the generations before me and my generation have had to feel from the hands of the police, from the people that are meant to serve and protect them. They shouldn't feel like they are not protected. They shouldn't feel like they are not safe within their community from the people that are meant to keep them safe. So that's what we do as a count. It's a big ask. It's important work. I absolutely love doing it because it gives me a voice to talk on issues that I'm about to talk on now. So I'm about to ask you a few questions. It's kind of one question, just asked in different ways. But I feel like it's a very important question, and I will add content to it after I ask the question, so why I'm asking this question. But I need you guys listening to really be honest with yourself. Because my question right now is, what do you mean when you say no justice, no peace? What do you actually mean when you say no justice, no peace? And what does justice actually look like when we refer to murders that have happened by the hands of the police? What does justice actually look like? Because I am 30 and I don't think I recall seeing a case where justice actually comes from it. Now correct me if I am wrong. Educate me if I am wrong. If there has been an officer prosecuted, in fact, if there have been more than 10 officers prosecuted, educate me. Because one isn't enough. One officer prosecuted is not enough when you compare how many murders have happened by the hands of the police. And I'm just talking about the UK. But we can refer to the USA. In fact, we can refer all across the globe. when it comes to this question here. What do you mean when you say no justice, no peace? What does justice actually look like? And I'm being genuine with that question because I don't know. I don't know what justice looks like. I ain't got a clue because it's rare. It's rare for a family to receive justice when their loved one had been stolen, when their loved one have been brutally taken, when their loved one have been murdered by the hands of the police. I don't know what that justice looks like. So I ask you, what do you mean when you say no justice, no peace? Because we would rally on the streets. We would go and protest. We would scream out, no justice, no peace. We would scream out, say their name. We would scream out, wanting to be heard, wanting to be seen, wanting to receive justice for once. We would take to the streets. We would make videos such as this one. We would tweet on X, as they call it now. We would do the absolute most for about 2 weeks to a month. We make the most noise, and rightly so. But eventually that dies down. And the noise becomes very quiet. And then we have the court case. And in this court case, 9 times out of 10, them families are gonna leave more broken than they entered. Because the verdict is the officer gets off. The book isn't thrown at the officer. He doesn't have to feel, or she doesn't have to feel, or they don't have to feel what it feels like to be locked up behind bars for killing someone. They don't have to go through that. They might lose their job, or they might have to go work in a different precinct. They might have to do desk duty. But more often than not, there's promotions that come in place. There's praises by some people internally for doing what they did. No justice is received for the families and for the community. We don't get no justice. Though we've rallied on the streets, though we've made noise, though we've made Instagram posts, we've made TikTok posts, we've made X posts, we still receive no justice. So I ask this question again. What does peace look like? What does no peace, What does no peace look like? Because I already know what peace looks like. We do it all the time. We rally for about a month. We make noise for about a month. And then we go back to living our lives like normal. We get the verdicts that the officers ain't being charged. We go back to living life like normal, giving them peace, giving them the exact opposite of what we said we was going to do. So what does no peace look like? And how far are you willing to go to ensure that there is no peace? And the reason I ask that question is because on May the 1st in Cincinnati, Ohio, a young 18-year-old, Ryan Hilton, his life was taken. He was murdered by the police. it was stated by the police, a statement that they gave the family and gave the community, that Ryan was in a stolen vehicle, and when approached by the police, him along with 3 other individuals ran from the vehicle, and Ryan proceeded to point a gun at the officers, which is what led to Ryan being shot. That is a statement that the police initially gave to the family, to the community at large. That's what we were told. However, the following day, it may have been the day after, I believe it was the following day, Ryan's father, Rodney Hilton Jr, and the rest of his family went to go and view this video footage, the body-worn video footage. And I'm sure they were expecting to see what they were told. That as Ryan ran away from the officers, he turned back and pointed a gun at the officers, leading the officers to feel like their life was in danger, to feel threatened, which then led to them killing him. However, when you view the footage, you don't see that. You see the officers approach the vehicle, 4 young men, including Ryan, all dispersed different directions. Some officers chased the other young men. One proceeded to follow Ryan. You can see that something dropped. You can't see clearly whether it was a gun or not. However, if I'm correct, Cincinnati, Ohio is an open state carry. It's an open carry state, so you are legally allowed to carry a gun without it being deemed as a criminal offence. So whether Ryan had a gun on him or not, it's not clear in the footage, and that's pending investigation that's still going on. So I can't talk too much about that, but whether or not he had a gun, what you can see clearly in that video footage is that at no point did Ryan point a weapon at the officers. So at no point was the officer's life really in danger in order for him to actually pull the trigger. Ryan was running away from the officer. He had his back to the officer. He had his back to the officer, meaning he wasn't a threat to the officer, but yet still, he was shot. Shot at 5 times, with 3 bullets actually hitting him. He was shot on the side. I think one was just about where his armpit is, but it travelled to his torso, which was the fatal blow, which is the bullet that ended his life. He took 3 bullets that day, but he wasn't a threat. The officers have other forms of weapons, de-escalating weapons that they could have used, a taser for example. But instead, he was shot at. He wasn't a threat, but he was shot at. Now, what follows on from that is the real reason I asked the question, what do you mean when you say no justice, no peace? Because following on from that, the very next day, after Rodney and his family had viewed the footage, and seen somewhat the opposite of what they were told in the original statement as to what happened. Rodney Hilton Jr., the father of Ryan Hilton, was so distraught that his family had to drive him from the station to go home or to wherever they were going, leaving his car there because he couldn't drive. He wasn't in the mental state to drive. However, later on that day, Rodney returned, collecting his car, and shortly afterwards, Rodney proceeded to drive his car into a retired sheriff, ending that sheriff's life. Now, I don't condone violence, so the act of violence in this manner, I don't agree with. However, I can understand exactly why Rodney felt the need to do what he did. I can understand the emotions behind it. I can understand the need to want to take action into your own hand, because time and time again, time after time, we've seen, in particular in America, we have seen many murders to civilians by the hands of the police, and yet no justice has come from it. I've heard people say that Rodney should have waited for the criminal justice system to do what they do best. Rodney would be waiting for forever to do what it's supposed to do. He won't be waiting long for them to do what they do best in this situation, and that's give no justice. But he will be waiting forever to receive what he should have received, or what he should receive, because it's an ongoing case currently, and it will take a hot minute to actually get the verdict. But he knew he would have to wait, and he knew even after waiting, he still wouldn't receive the correct verdict. He still wouldn't receive the justice that is deemed justified in this situation. He knew the officer who killed Ryan most likely will not serve any time, will be protected by the brothers who bleed blue, by the system who bleeds blue. He knew that protection would be there. He's seen it. We've seen it consistently. So many murders have happened, and yet we're still waiting for justice. Was he right? Maybe not. Was he justified? I'll let you decide that one. But it goes back to my question. What do you mean when you say no justice, no peace? What does no peace mean? Because I've heard many and I've seen many individuals condemn what Rodney did, saying, as I said, he should have waited. He should have waited for the system, the justice system, to provide justice. We're telling a grieving father to wait for a system to provide justice, the same system that allowed for his son to be murdered. Telling a grieving father that is somewhat like just slapping him in his face, spitting on him and punching him, because he knows that ain't happening, that ain't coming, that justice ain't coming. So he did what he felt was necessary. He put the action behind no justice, no peace. He made sure he gave them no peace. He knew this could lead to him spending his life behind bars. In actual fact, he's looking at potentially receiving a death penalty for 2 charges of aggravated murder, if I am correct. He knew the consequences, but he said, I'm not waiting. I'm getting my own back. I'm making sure they know if there's no justice, there will be no peace. He put the action behind that. But many of us are condemning this. So I ask you, what do you mean when you say no justice, no peace? What does no peace look like? What are we supposed to do when we say no justice, no peace? What are we meant to do in this situation? Are we meant to rally on the streets, protest, shout out, say his name? Don't forget Ryan's name. Are we meant to do that for about a month and then go back to living life like normal? While the Hilton family are grieving, are broken, are hurting, are angry, are frustrated, are confused, because they still ain't received no justice. But yet everyone's shouting the name of their son, their loved one, their cousin, their brother, their boy. But no justice is coming. So was he right? Maybe not. Was he justified? Maybe he was. Maybe he wasn't. Like I said, I'll let you decide that. But I'm going to end it by saying, what do you mean when you say no justice, no peace? What does justice actually look like? And what does no peace actually look like? Thank you for listening. Comment below what you mean when you say no justice, no peace. Comment below if you think that Rodney Hilton was justified in what he did. Make sure you like, subscribe, and listen out for another episode of Justice Talks with Account. Stay blessed, stay undefeated with an undefeated mind. I am out. Love and respect.